And we are recording with Mr. Leo Zagami. I've only got you for about 30 minutes because both of our schedules, but John Barnwell told me I needed to get you. And so he put me in touch with you. And I am so honored to have you on here, man. But for all the listeners and for myself, introduce yourself and tell me a little about yourself.
Well, for a very synthetic, let's say, introduction, I would say I was born in 1970. I'm an investigative journalist, an author. Prior to that, I also, for many years, belonged to various secret societies within what is known as the Illuminati or the New World Order setup. So my direct involvement with this world then was interrupted in 2006. I started a blog at that time. Then later on, I started to publish several books to expose everything in a more detailed manner, as I thought that the internet wasn't really a place where I could credibly make myself heard from a majority of people who thought initially I was some kind of wannabe scammer in search of some notoriety. In reality, I was only helping myself to survive, as it was the last possibility I had when I was threatened with death in the Monte Carlo Lodge, which at that time I was a member in 2006. And so here I am now from 2019. I've been moving after I was persecuted for the publication of my books in Italy. The persecution got so bad that I was forced to leave with my wife and relocate here in California. So this is, and of course, for those who don't know it, Leo Zagami is a member of a family that, of course, is linked to the British royal family, to the Sacred Roman Empire from my father's side. So, I mean, this basically is the introduction that I can give you, which I guess is the shortest ever in the history of introduction, but it's a good one.
Well, we are 100% going to have to do another much longer episode because
we will do it. We said that when my new book is coming out now in the next few weeks. So once the book is out, I will be more relaxed. I will have more time at disposal, and I will be able to also do an interview regarding the book in question.
Beautiful. I'll absolutely do that. And for everybody listening, I will put your website as well as your books on Amazon. I will link all of those in the description as always, so you can go visit them there. And I'm going to go through all of your books. I glanced at a couple of the titles. So and John Barnwell said this, I have to ask you, were you really the head of the Freemasonry Lodge in Monaco?
Yes.
That's insane. That's so insane.
Well, I still have a few friends there in Monaco, actually. I must say that the fact is that they are still continuing, and there is like an internal ongoing transformation of these institutions. And so every now and then they call me up. My friend Domizio Torrigiani, who is Grand Prior there of the Knights Templars, recently nominated me a member of the Monaco Academy of Sciences, whatever, I don't know. But I mean, I'm no longer, of course, active within those circles because they had asked me to be silent on a number of things. Though since I came out with this revelations many years ago now, I mean, time flies, but we are in 2022, and all this started when I decided in 2006 to make this public. And so then there was a period of time in which they still hoped I could maybe rejoin them. But when I gave up most of the secrets to the public domain, that it was no longer possible, I guess, for them to. But then they realized, after all these years, that a lot of the things that I said and announced back then were correct. So there is some members within these fraternities, these Masonic groups, orders, and sects I was part of, that actually understand maybe better now what I did than back then.
Now, you know, And I love Cold War history. I love all history, and I love conspiracies. And I don't say that in the derogatory way that a lot of people say conspiracies. I look at conspiracies as very factual things. I mean, just any history of the Cold War, things that get declassified, you find that conspiracy theories are in reality conspiracy facts. And to me, it also makes complete sense that there is a concentrated, tightly controlled, and very effective center of power. That's just all things kind of go that way, whether it's football or whether it's a company that makes iPhones, or, all fields always do go to concentrated things. To me, that makes sense, right? I mean, even in the ocean, you have one animal group, right? Sharks. Everything does lead to a concentrated point. So to me, it makes absolute sense. All of that being said, and because obviously this is a short episode, so I got to cram a lot in here. Everything going on with COVID-19, and even the Pope calling for mass vaccination, saying it's, Jesus would want you to be vaccinated. In your mind, or in your opinion, do you think these groups are behind this? Is it just, on one hand, is it Occam's razor? Is it just a money grab, right? Go to war so the defense contractors make money, like in Vietnam or in Iraq? Or is this a more globally coordinated lockstep procedure to issue everyone vaccinations, digital IDs, and thus control the movement of people, and be able to really prosecute anyone under the guise of it's for your own health?
Well, I mean, you just have to go back to the history of the Illuminati, the infamous group led by Adam Weishaupt, to understand what they are really doing. Because in reality, the great reset that we're facing now, and of course we know that the World Economic Forum is a creature of this Illuminati group.
Demonic.
It's a kind of a demonic creature, but it's a creature that, of course, works in course with the Jesuits, the Vatican. And we know that Weishaupt himself wanted the drastic elimination of all religions, in a way, of all religion. At the same time, though, also the elimination of private property. So, I mean, this is really arriving to the last stage of a plan that was, of course, put together a long time ago. A lot of people have focused at times on the lower degree teachings of the Illuminati, which were more moderate, which actually didn't push people towards a violent revolution, but then they kept the upper echelon with the truths, which instead were that whatever it takes, we need to bring down all the monarchies, all the religion, the Pope, of course, and everybody who is a religious figure. But at that time, of course, we had a very different situation. Today, instead, religion, starting from the Vatican after the Second World War, was infiltrated by the Illuminati and Freemasonry for the Second Vatican Council. The Vatican was basically then completely readjusted, as well as the faith itself was readjusted. Even the actual Mass from Latin tending to the ordinary vernacular language of each country became something different. And later on, people started to realize that maybe that was a mistake. But now, with Pope Francis actually actively persecuting the people who do the Latin Mass, actually persecuting the traditionalists, unifying most religions under this banner of human fraternity, which is, of course, a pseudo-paramasonic kind of idea, which actually it's brought together by a Mason. There is actually a guy called Father Benninger from Austria who works within the fold to do that. It just proves that their plan is working, that Weishaupt has actually managed, not himself, of course. And we have to also understand that in the 1780s, in the middle of the 1780s, the Illuminati were actually exposed. They were exposed, and a persecution was started by the monarchs, by the church against them. But that wasn't enough to stop them, because they simply changed the name. they resurfaced under various disguises, and in the end, they even attempted to resurface with the name order of the Illuminati in Dresden, later on Germany, and in Austria with the Leopold Engel and then Theodor Reuss, who then gave birth to the OTS. So, I mean, the historical side points out to the fact that they're simply completing their mission. Regarding you mentioned earlier on, before we came to the show, our common friend John Barnwell, who is a student of Rudolf Steiner, he always of course warned against the Jesuits and their way of infiltrating Freemasonry, the high degrees, and literally playing also on some of the weaknesses of normal people, of average people who entered these secret societies, at times in an attempt also to elevate themselves socially. And this gave them an illusion, no? When they received degrees with pompous titles, prince, this, that, philosopher king, whatever. I mean, it's kind of like, it makes you think you are, wow, I bring some. In reality, though, the systems were created for a different reason earlier on. They were created so that the Illuminati, but also the monarchs of their time, could still interact with the lower parts of society within a closed and controlled environment. But then, of course, we had the French Revolution that demonstrated that the Masonic institution in some way had been infiltrated by an ideal that, of course, was born within Weishaupt's body, which was this anti-monarchic and anti-religious ideal. Now, of course, at that time, the Jesuits were prevalently in support of the monarchy, but they later on kind of twisted their own, bended their own ideas, because their ultimate goal is the control on behalf of the Pope, whatever it takes, it takes. So the creature that Adam Weishaupt devised is, of course, just one of the emanations of an ancient mystery school that started a long time before. But Weishaupt was clever enough, like I explain in my books, to just codify and make it possible to finally have a secret society which was focused on political, religious intrigue, infiltration, extracting the candidates to really do whatever it takes to obtain their goals. They also wanted to infiltrate those monarchs who didn't want to bend to their ideals and try to convince them. When that wasn't possible, then they would trigger a revolution, and that might be, of course, a murderous revolution. And they did it, and they were successful, because one after the other, the monarchies of Europe capitulated to this whole thing. At the same time, we had, of course, the establishment of the idea that we can maybe live in a different way with the Great American Experiment and the 1776 Republic, on which we stand. At least we stand for the moment.
For now.
I don't know, though, if we have the DNA within this system to actually withhold the enemy's attack that you were talking about when you started the show. So all these prevarications are symptomatic of something that is not really correct in today's world, especially here in the United States, which is hold really to, it's still the last bastion of hope, of freedom in this world. So if this system capitulates, if this system falls, then we don't have anything left. If not, though, and that's why I am focusing very much on a relaunch of certain monarchic ideas in Europe, because they are entrenched in the DNA of Europeans, and they're not entrenched in the DNA of America. America needs to continue its experiment, but if its experiment fails because of the socialist infiltration that wants to give more and more power to the state, becoming almost like Soviet Union 2.0, then it's very scary, you see. Now, the other day I was reading this very interesting work by Victor Schreff, I think is his name, who is an who is a kind of economic strategist, who moved out of the Soviet Union in the 70s, and then he actually was in favor, of course, of capitalism, while now he's saying that capitalism is failing and that we should embrace socialism because it's more suitable for a technocratic paradise. A socialist idea in the eyes of the elite works better in a robotic, computerized digital world. Going back to the Steiner, to Rudolf Steiner, we can say that the Ahrimanic concept manifests very much in the artificial intelligence. So the Ahrimanic concept, for those who don't know it, Ahriman is, of course, demonic figure, the devil in the ancient Zoroastrian culture. But the artificial intelligence and what's manifesting in the next few years is pointing towards a totalitarian state like China or Russia to have the winning elements to actually bring forward their plan of an authoritarian new world order. So in a way, here we are in America talking about a democratic backsliding. More and more, the Democrats like to say there is democratic backsliding with the patriots, are involved in something. Instead, they are the ones who are actually helping the democratic backsliding, peddling it all the way. Why? Because by their, for example, before the elections, they put together like a commission that in 2026, on the anniversary, to the 150th anniversary of the United States of America, should reinvent democracy. Why you need to reinvent democracy if this system has been working for 250 years? Can you just mind your own business? No. They need to reinvent it. It means that they are doing something behind the scenes that is not reinventing democracy, but rather the contrary. And that means rigging democracy.
Yes.
Now, the Illuminati were pretty much obsessed with materialism. One of the essays of the highest degrees, the Docetist degree of the Illuminati, in his philosophical fragment, was actually entitled it was actually this Uber Materialismus and Idealismus of Adam Weishaupt, which basically points on materialism and idealism, which pointed on the idea that the world is pretty much, very much entrenched in materialism. And the whole idea was, though, to still use Jesus as a cover-up for operations, because Jesus is a very popular figure. So they said, okay, we can. It was actually right at the foundation of the Illuminati, Baron Knig, who convinced Weishaupt to do this, following what were the teachings of the Jesuits, to convince them that to use Jesus as a cover-up, as a cloak for their anti-Christian plan. So Jesus portrayed as some kind of mystery school freak rather than the Son of God will help them in their ultimately in their plan, which is, as I said, is actually working out for them, not for us, for them. It's kind of incredible, but a couple of years ago, I think it was Thailand, a lawsuit was moved because the actual Thailand, they have a kingdom, they have a king, have the problem of an infiltration, and the Illuminati were publicly accused in a court of justice as being infiltrating the kingdom to eliminate it. Just as they were doing centuries before in Europe, they had replicated the same model also in the Far East. Now, a lot of people will tend to dismiss this as nonsense, but I still think that ultimately their plan to eliminate the monarchies coincides with their plan to eliminate religion, because ultimately when we have the return or the arrival, depending on if you are a Jew or Christian, of the Messiah, Jesus, however you want to call him, there is at that point the necessity for a throne and a return to the kingdom, because it's the actual Bible that the New Testament says the kingdom of God. When God comes back for the kingdom, it's not said democracy. There's no election around Jesus. It's not talking about the democracy, because when you talk about democracy in front of Jesus, you will be basically dead just on the thought of it, not even on the spelling of the thought, but on the thought of it.
Okay.
And so we have to be ready. We have to be ready ultimately to understand that this democracy on which we stand was founded in 1776. Thomas Paine, we know, convinced then Jefferson, the idea of the republic was prevalent. And so they decided to use the republic. Okay, fine. But this is an experiment. And at the same time, the people who were the founders of this of America, the founders of America, in reality were all monarchists, because they didn't ever experience anything different in their age. But they wanted to give it to expand into a new possibility, that could materialize from a theory into a concrete project, which happened in 1776. So what happened in 1776 is basically not a democracy, but a republic, which is a different thing, as we know, in the way. And this republic is in reality a cover-up, because it's a republic with an expiral date. And what is the expiral date for the Republic of America? The date of the return of the Messiah, because the moment in which the Messiah returns, automatically, by the foundation of America and God we trust, you are obliged to cancel the republic in front of Jesus. You understand?
Okay.
So the secret that was communicated to the father founders had to be kept alive, and the traditions around it. So at that point, the high degrees of Freemasonry, which were then discussed and then elaborated, and eventually they took form with the 33 degree of the ancient accepted Scottish Rite, which became the prevalent rite in the United States, contain within the highest degrees, even the York Rite, these monarchic elements that lead to the kingdom of God. Because the moment in which the republic expires, the monarchy that arises is holy, is sacred. You are not even meant to discuss it. And in the future, because we will be all interconnected, even putting a discussion on that matter will bring you to be on one side or the other of the fence. And the other side of the fence, as we know, is Satan's Legion, which at the moment is actually winning their battle in this materialistic war. So we need to defend the republic, but we need to also to remember that this republic on which we stand has an expiry date. Just like when we buy yogurt, milk thing, we know that this is an expiry date. This expiry date, though, has a variable, because we don't know the exact moment in time in which the Messiah will show up. And this is really why the father founders cloaked in secrecy all these things within the more reserved ambiance of Freemasonry, which at the time was Christian. It wasn't the Freemasonry that came out in the 19th century. It wasn't the Freemasonry that came out after the Illuminati basically managed to spread all the poison. The Illuminati were capable of infiltrating with their poisonous atheist ideas Freemasonry, and on the long run, they managed to pollute the whole system. So nowadays, the majority of Masonic obediences and even Masonic lodges that depend from them are corrupted by this ideal of progressive nonsense. And even, you see, Freemasonry had, in a way, created a defense against the Illuminati. And that defense was basically the fact that you couldn't discuss neither religion or politics in lodges. It was like an antidote. You know, if we arrive to have something like the Illuminati, we have an antidote. And they had this. Unfortunately, though, the virus was too strong. The antidote didn't work, and the lodges were eventually polluted, especially after 1813, when the ancient and the moderns opened up the lodges to the non-Christians, and Freemasonry became a much wider thing than just a Christian, form of fraternity. It became all-inclusive, especially because it expanded with the British Empire in various setups, in which there were, of course, various holy books and various beliefs. And this is okay. It's okay until we leave it within the realms of the lodges, of the secret societies that claim to believe in these things. But when you are bringing it out like the Pope is doing it nowadays, well, then it's a different thing. Then it's a different thing, because then you are basically prevaricating on the right and just religious aspirations of the people. And you are forcing them into believing in science rather than God, when the Pope himself believes more in the vaccine than in Jesus Christ. So it's I think, and I hope that what I'm saying here is very clear. I don't want to offend anybody regarding the republic on which we stand, because this is the best place on the planet. But we need to remind ourselves, in God we trust or we don't trust? We trust, fine. We do trust in the book, and the Holy Book says he will return. Fine. Will he return with a democracy? No, a kingdom. Basically, make yourself acquainted with monarchy before it's too late, because that's another psychological big problem. You see, here at the moment, the problem of the day is, of course, the prevalence of the satanic legion and their interest in the world, the oppression that we are living, the sanitary dictatorship, everything forced into the mark of the beast. This is what most conspiracy circles today, or reality circles, if you want to be more honest about the word, as you mentioned earlier, conspiracy, not in a derogatory form. And so I would say, make yourself acquainted with monarchy, not because we want to in any way make Joe Biden or anybody else our king, because that's antithetic to the truth, but because in the end times the truth will come out, and at that point the king that will manifest is our Lord Jesus Christ, and on that there is no saying, because then it's, see, the enemy here, China, Russia, these people already know the truth, and that's why they stand with a one-man in control system. Xi Jinping has extended his power in China forever, unlimited. So he can, at the touch of a button, move billions of people and their interests. Same when it comes down to Russia. They don't have billions, but they have a lot of people. Russia is a big nation, still powerful, nuclear, and same thing. Vladimir Putin is in full control of the whole nation, because they know very well that unfortunately that democratic circus that up until the technological age could still make us strong, and here in the US we lived on the American dream because of that, no? Now it becomes weakness. Now it becomes weird, because now we are in a world that interacts in the matter of seconds, and you have to wait 4 years to kick out a guy who doesn't even know how to wipe his ass. That means that in the meantime, the enemy takes over your country, buys out your politicians. So the enemy is already authoritarian in nature. The answer of the Democrats is, oh, we have to discuss democracy. We have to do conferences on democracy. And so what they do a conference on democracy in December with Joe Biden, and they leave out Russia and China, making them even more angry, and demonstrating also that we are completely demented in our approach, because last year in Alaska, when the Chinese met with the Americans, they were pretty clear. No, they said, yes, but in your country, most people think that your government, your democracy doesn't really work. So why are you coming to us to criticize us? Yeah. See, we don't have anymore neither the moral or ethical stand to impose our will and at least our current, our vision to the rest of the world. And at the same time, we are declining because every day we spend in the circus of democracy at this current phase. In 5 years, China is gonna be not only stronger than us, but it's gonna own us and throw us in the dark ages. So the problem here is that Americans don't realize, and I'm becoming an American, I'm proud of becoming an American because I want to teach Americans the way. When we fought the Cold War, who were our biggest allies? In Russia, it was the White Russians, the so-called White Russian. It wasn't because they were white. No, it was simply because they were aristocrats, nobles that had been kicked out, who had disappeared, had to disappear after the revolution because otherwise they would be killed, who fled the Soviet Union and collaborated with us in order to sabotage that evil empire, because that's what it was. Same thing is with China. We had the big Chinese empire. The moment the communists took over, we could have absorbed some of that, Chinese imperialists that maybe wanted to oppose the communists, but we didn't do it because in our mind, Mao Zedong could have been a better kind of person to dialogue with than an emperor, and we gave him the possibility of rising to power. And then, unfortunately, with Nixon, we opened up China, and now we have China as not only our main competitor, but soon as the nation that could actually dominate us completely, enslave us in what is a digital prison, because we don't need any longer a real kind of prison. The prisons of the future are simply digital.
They will win if we let them. And
if we let them, like I said, the only way we can protect ourselves is to prepare communities of like-minded people, and that's happening already around the United States.
And on this podcast, I think I've brought a lot of people who are thinking the same, and we will pick up on there.
Yeah,
because I have another guest I have to have on.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for having me on.
I want to have you
definitely come back, because the rest of what we want to be discussing is directly connected to my new book, which is volume 7, which is from the occult roots of the Great Reset to the populist roots of the Great Reject.
Beautiful. The only reason I'm cutting this short is because I have another guest. I would love to have you on and just let you talk for hours, because that was fascinating. That was fascinating, man. I cannot wait to have you on again. I will send you an email when this is up. Mr. Leo Zagami.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, sir. God bless you. God bless America.
God bless America.
Thank you so much, my man.